Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Hello there. Look at this hair. What the hell? You got to get your hair cut, Pat. I mean, I've just been so busy. But you know what I've been busy doing? A lot of fun things. I went to a great brunch with my wife and Korlutsky sisters on Sunday. On Saturday, we went out to dinner. So I got to get my hair cut, though. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, presented by Titan MRI, the great people at Titan MRI. We love them so much. And, of course, we are in the Shack Allen Mercandani studios, and we appreciate them for continuing to be our great hosts for this podcast. Excuse me, I've got the burps for some reason. Luckily, the big one I let out before we went on the air. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Chris Lowe, one of my favorite guests to have on, the Bulldog, I call him. He breaks a lot of stories, writes for ESPN, does college football writing for them. Great guy, and one of my favorite people in the world. Will be on the show a little bit later. Greg McGarity is going to join us Friday, and, of course, we'll talk to him about where the Bulls are and what's going on with all the Bulls. And they got a good game this year, and what's the enthusiasm level. So there's plenty of stuff to talk to him about Friday. I think we're going to get Greg McElroy on Monday of next week, so we'll see how that goes. There's a lot to talk about, certainly. But you know what's funny? I was thinking about this today. I was driving in, and I was thinking about, I'm still ticked off about the basketball game. The guy from Florida Pest Control came and did my termite service today, and he was a big fan of the podcast and the tailgate, and he wanted to talk about basketball and everything, and I'm like, yeah. But then I was driving in, and I was listening to the song All Those Years Ago by George Harrison. It was written as an homage to John Lennon, and I realized I'd kind of blown by the anniversary of John Lennon's death. And for those of you who don't know, John Lennon was born the very day died the very day my daughter was born, and it was a weird day. And people make fun of me for thinking it was weird. I love my daughter to death, my oldest daughter, who is my youngest daughter is with her right now out in Los Angeles, and I miss both of them. But John Lennon was important to me, as were all the Beatles. So I can sit here and talk about how great that song is, or I could just talk some sports. And I'm guessing anybody listening to this podcast or watching it here on YouTube or Facebook Live wants me to talk about sports. Well, there's a lot to talk about, and I don't know that I can get through it all. We'll try. We have all of our usual suspects when it comes to all of our special contests and everything, and the hand law and everything. We love the sponsors who've been great to us and keep us plugging away. Episode 101. So we're on the back end of 100, right? Starting that way. Let's start with the basketball game yesterday. Now, when I saw that it was on the Big Ten Network, I go, I don't think I'm getting that. I get every channel in the world, every one. But I don't get the Big Ten Network. I'm on Cox, and maybe there's some. I could have ordered it, I guess, but no. So I went to Gators Dockside. I had a lovely cold beer there, and watched the game. And it does feel like this basketball team has become this football team. Like, everybody loved him in the beginning. Anthony Richardson's leaping single buildings in a single bound, or leaping tall buildings in a single bound. Get it right. That's what they said about Superman. They should have beaten Alabama. They could have. And then it all went downhill, and everybody hated him. Everybody hated him. And they fired the coach. And that's what happens. Everybody hates you. Eventually you fire the coach. Well, look, there's a lot of negative people about Mike White, but early this year, what happened? Everybody loved him. Beat Ohio State, which is still a huge win. Beat FSU for the first time, which is not as huge a win because they keep losing. But then the Texas Southern thing happened, and it dropped everybody, all the fans, into a coma. And now another loss, which they could have won, but they didn't play great. Maryland's not a great team. And now everybody, again, is going to hop on that Fire Mike White bandwagon, which they love to be on for some reason in the Gator Nation. I mean, people don't like him. They want Billy. They want Billy results. Well, Billy results were great, but they weren't always great. They weren't great every year. Look, I watched the game. I watched every second of the game because I did go somewhere to watch the game. It wasn't good. It is an issue. 3 out of 4 losses is not good. Now they get to play, I think, a couple of games before they start the SEC. But it's not good. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes from here. I really am. Look, I'm a big believer that a lot of these kids, and when I say kids, I'm talking about 21, 22-year-old players in a lot of ways. This is an old team, but these guys were good, really good players on bad teams that didn't do anything. And they were the guys who carried them. And so now they get in here and they feel like sometimes I got to go, I got to do it, because if I don't do it, nobody else can do it. And they have bad shot selections, and they try to do too much. That's my opinion of the team. Doesn't mean I'm right. They can't, and this team cannot be successful without Colin Castleton on the floor. Played 26 minutes because of foul trouble, eventually fouled out. Not surprisingly, they lost the game on a layup after he had fouled out. He's got to be on the floor all the time. And I know that a lot of you were probably complaining about the officials in this game. Look, I'm going to say this. I can't even say I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to say it 100 times. You have to play around officials. All officials make mistakes, and they make a lot of mistakes. And sometimes they make ridiculous mistakes. And a lot of times listen, there's a reason why we have replay in every sport now, because these guys are human and they make mistakes. They're not, are they bad? Are they bad at their jobs? Well, if it was like one of those jobs where, well, you're bad at your job, let me take your job, people would be lining up to be coaches, to be referees, to be officials, to be umpires. Nobody is. It's mostly people that want to stay in the sport, in whatever sport they're involved in, and they study and they work hard at it. But they're still going to miss things. Things are going to get missed. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the officials. Okay, that's not why they lost, but certainly a bad loss. I think I didn't write this down, but I looked it up because my back nine. I don't know if it's up yet on Gatorsports or WRUF.com. Gatorsports.com. That was the old thing I used to write for. But on WRUF.com, I don't know if it's up yet, but I think Florida's like really low, like in the 80s maybe, in net ranking, and that's not good. I mean, they're not going to be able to go, well, we beat Ohio State, which was a huge win, and then we countered it with a loss to Texas Southern. So we're at 0. And then we did beat FSU, but they're not too good. And then we lost to a couple of Midland teams. I mean, Oklahoma looks like it might be better than everybody thought, but Maryland's not. You saw Maryland. Maryland's got a lot of problems, and there's a reason the coach quit or got fired. So I don't know. I think people have gone from, hey, look, well, the basketball team's at least going good. We can get around that. We can rally around that tree to, we got nothing. We got nothing. But you do have something. You have things. Believe me. There's things that are good. Your head coach is putting together this monster staff. He continues to do it. Basketball is not dead. They just need to get things together. They're a streaky shooting team that goes, Appleby making 5 threes in the second half, and then he misses the one that would have won the game. And when he let it go, I went, that's going in. That is going in. They're going to win again on an Appleby shot at the buzzer, clang off the back of the iron. Just one of those nights. But the football staff continues to be put together. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the different people that are involved in it, but that continues. Recruiting continues. signing day is Wednesday, and it's pretty clear Florida's not going to have a great class. I mean, I know that there's one recruit out there who's saying you're not going to believe who we get. There's going to be surprises. Well, maybe that's what coaches are telling them, but I don't think it's going to be anything special. We'll get into the transfer portal in a little bit. It has gone nuts, crazy what's going on there. And I believe this, and I'll talk to Chris Lowe about this in a minute. I believe that, we used to always talk about the coaching carousel. It's all a carousel. And what happens on a carousel? Remember that? It's kind of like that little thing that you used to have when you were a kid, and you ran around, and it goes round, you get on it. Sometimes you get thrown off of it. Sometimes you puke. That's what it feels like with college football right now. All the people that are in the transfer portal, all the assistant coaches that have changed jobs after telling kids, look, this is the way it works, but after telling kids, if you come here, we'll win a championship. We believe in you. All the head coaches that have left jobs and not coached their bowl games. And there aren't many that are, I don't know of any that are coaching their bowl games. Most of them have just decided to leave. So we got all that going on. There's a lot of news out there I want to get to. Randy Shannon is now the co-defensive coordinator at FSU. Is there going to be any job in the state of Florida you don't have? Because you've had pretty much them all. Oregon hires Dan Lanning. My man, Chip Towers, who broke the story and who's been on this podcast. And when he broke the story, everybody refuted it. Oh, this is not true. This is wrong. And then less than 24 hours when he goes, well, apparently the story was correct. He is a new coach at Oregon, which is a little bit of a surprise. It was turned down by Wilcox, the Cal coach. Justin Wilcox, the Cal coach, turned him down. I think it's a really good job. I don't know if it's a top 5 job. But now, and I don't know if it's going to be for the bowl game, I think Lanning may coach the bowl game. Will Muschamp, co-defensive coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs going into a national championship run. The world is a weird place. That's what I'm talking about with the carousel. I did watch the Navy-Army game, and it's Navy-Army because Navy won. It was a good argument for the 2 TV system because you had one TV, whatever I wanted to watch on there, where you can change it around. I had golf on. Billy Horschel did really good, finished the stroke back. I had some basketball on, but I could keep that Army-Navy game on and keep a track of it, and it was great. It was a fun game to watch, and stunning that Jeff Monken, their head coach, came out and said, we got out-schemed and out-coached. That's refreshing. I wonder who should have maybe said that after the Kentucky game. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think of who it would be. All right, the Heisman Trophy, my vote was the exact way it finished. I still kind of feel bad about Will Anderson. I probably should have voted him third, but I decided not to. I had reasons, and they probably weren't good reasons. But he did finish third in the first place votes. How about this? 48 different people got votes. Tells you how good college football was this year. All right, so we got all that going on. We got all of our things to get to and a lot to get to, including the Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. We're going to rank the bowl games that aren't CFP games. But when we come back after we take this break, Chris Lowe, the Bulldog, is going to join us from ESPN. Love talking to him. We are in the Shaq Allen Mercandante studios, and we are Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shaq Allen Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shaq Allen Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Another Duly Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Hey, this is Pat Dooley for the Gainesville Quarterback Club, and they are having a trial membership here at the end of the season. It's really a great deal. We've talked about them doing it at the beginning of the season, and what they're doing is they're offering the next 3 meetings for $100. And believe me, you get a full meal out of this, too. Every one of these meetings. It's great speakers. The meeting dates for this are November 9th, 16th, and 23rd as we wrap up this college football season. Anyone interested in taking advantage of this trial membership can RSVP the membership leader at bob.bagley@pauldavis.com. Or you can just pay at the door.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. All right, welcome back to another Duly Noted Podcast, and love those sponsors, especially Adam, who does a great job, and we'll get to Hand Law, and we'll get to Alex Wesley Construction, and Leonardo's Quick Picks. You guys got shut out. Everybody picked Army. Shut out on the Quick Picks and the Hesser and Kipke Monday spreads, which we like. But right now we're going to go talk to one of my favorite people in the world. I call him the Bulldog because he breaks stories all the time. His name is Chris Lowe, and he works for ESPN, and he is one of the best. What's going on, Chris?
Pat, well, first of all, man, it's great to see you. It's, I guess we live in a world now with 2020 where we didn't get to see many people. We do, I guess, via Zoom, and that's about it. But it's always good to be with you and talk a little football. And before we get started, I just want to make sure that you pass this message on to the ambassador, aka the head ball coach. And I'm hearing that now he is starting to routinely rake in 3-foot putts. So you be sure to pass that message along to him.
Wow. If I tell him that, he's not going to be happy. I can tell you that. Well, the thing is about poor Steve is his hands are really killing him. He's really not playing much golf, so I feel bad for him. But we're in Steve Spurrier's restaurant right now, so you should be excited about that.
And I haven't had a chance to visit yet. How about Visors? Are you going to? Do you have your post-game show at Visors after the?
We've been to Visors, and yes, and we actually our sports editor is retiring, and so we'll be up there Thursday, imbibing in my favorite beer that they have is called the 5220 beer, which was the score of the Florida FSU game. So when they won the national title, so the 5220 is what I would recommend you order when you get down here.
Well, knowing Steve as I do, and as you do, they've got Coors Banquet.
I wonder, do they have Coors Banquet? I don't know if they do or not.
Put it this way, Steve's caught a few ball plays in his life, and he's tossed a few course banquets. I'll leave it at that.
He has. I was talking about this before, Chris. Is it we always talk about, and we always kind of have this cliche, coaching carousel. There's no coaching. Everything is a carousel in college football now. I mean, everything is like, who's going to land on black? Who's going to land on red? All the quarterbacks are transferring. The coaches are leaving. Who's coaching the bowl games? It's gotten crazy.
And honestly, Pat, I think it's going to get crazier, man. I don't see this stopping. Do you?
No,
do you see it?
I don't.
Salaries the way they are, and the rules changing, and I'm a little torn about the whole transfer portal opt-out thing. Having grown up sports background, sports teaches you so many great life lessons about commitment,
right,
and hanging in there, and playing for your team. But it's hard for me to really lambaste or criticize kids leaving when coaches are leaving for millions of dollars, man. It's just,
right.
Why should a player be held to a different standard than a coach? Do I like any of it in theory? No, I don't. Again, I don't think that's what sports teaches any of us. But it's just where we are now, and the one-time transfer, the opting out for bowl games. I think we're getting to a point, Pat, outside of the playoff games, maybe the bigger New Year's Six games, that any kid who's a draftable player, or let's say this, 80% of players who are draftable and think they're going to be or projected to be first, second, third, maybe even a fourth-round pick, aren't going to play in bowl games. And I think we're seeing that already this year. Every day there's a new guy that's not going to play. But again, it's hard to beat up on a kid when he's looking out for what he feels like are his best interests. And it's a lot of cases it's a business decision. Do I like it? No. Do I understand it? If I'm that kid's dad or his granddad or his uncle or his mom, then I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Mike Leach makes that statement that he made, which may have been the dumbest single thing he said, which in a long list of, I like Mike Leach a lot. I'm a big fan of his. He has supported our golf tournament for multiple years, but for him to say that he doesn't understand kids opting out and then he'll opt out if a better job comes along, it's kind of a weird deal that we're dealing with. This kind of the coach-player relationship has changed between NIL and opting out and all this stuff. It's almost like you got to be recruiting them every day.
And coaches have to evolve and adapt. I mean, it's not the Junction Boys, man. It ain't the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. I mean, you got to be able to connect and relate to kids and coach them, and they got to know that you truly have their best interests at heart. And it's just the way you talk to players now is different than it used to be. And I'm 56, and I can remember playing ball, and it was if you didn't get cursed 20 times in a day, then that was probably a pretty good day, and
yeah,
it's just the way it was. Now, not to say that coaches don't still use some swear words, but it is different. And for coaches that are going to last the ones that are going to last and continue going at a high level are the ones, Pat, like really anything else in life, that they learn to adapt and evolve and to still coach kids hard and push them and challenge them, but do it in such a way that those kids feel like that you're not demeaning them, you're not belittling them, but you're just trying to challenge them to become better football players. And sometimes in this day and age with the transfer portal and just the way society is now, that's a fine line, man. That's a tough line to walk. But again, the coaches that are the greatest, the coaches that are best, will find a way to do that.
Well, and that's the thing. We're sitting here, and it's almost been a quarterback run. It's almost like we're in a draft where Quinn Ewers goes from Ohio State to Texas, where now Calzada, the quarterback of Texas A&M, has jumped into the portal. Bo Nix, Auburn for life, has jumped into the transfer portal. Who else? Keaton Slovis just jumped into the transfer. It's almost like the coaches are sitting back going, I'll take him in the third round. it is just so weird what is going on to me. And there's a part of me that is kind of, and again, you like you said, we can either cover it or not cover it. I mean, that's our job. Coaches can either adapt, or you got to evolve, or you fall behind. But there's part of me, it's like, I'm not saying they're ruining college football for me, but they're making it a little bit less enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like pro sports. I mean, we grew up in a time when guys played their whole career somewhere. Roger Staubach was at Dallas, his whole time. Terry Bradshaw at Pittsburgh. I mean, and then all of a sudden, free agency. Same with pro basketball. Now, I understand Michael Jordan played his last couple of years with the Wizards, I guess.
Yeah.
But Magic Johnson, Larry Bird spent their entire careers, with the Lakers and the Celtics, but it's not like that anymore. And certainly in college sports and football and basketball, we're seeing their own version of free agency. I'll say this for quarterback. You mentioned quarterback. Good luck to those coaches who think they're going to keep two really good quarterbacks on the roster. That ain't happening, man. Those days are over. Think about Jalen Hurts saving Alabama's bacon. What was that? 18 when he came off the bench when Tua Tagovailoa got hurt.
Right.
Can you imagine keeping two guys of that caliber at quarterback on the same team now? It's not going to happen. So one's going to transfer and they're going to go somewhere else where they can play. So those teams that had quarterback depth in the past, two really good players, maybe you got one who's a veteran and another guy you're trying to bring along. Now, I'm not talking about last year, because you look at Alabama.
Sure.
Certainly Bryce Young was willing to wait his turn, and he's going to be, the Heisman Trophy winner this year. I'm sure he'll have another great year next year, and then he'll go pro. But anytime you've got guys, I think, Pat, within a class of each other, and they're on the same roster, and both of them are really talented quarterbacks, even if one of them is not as talented as they think they are, keeping depth at that position is going to be a headache for all football coaches.
Yeah, and I think that was the plan that Dan Mullen thought he had in place, and that Kyle Trask, once he was done, then Emory would take over, and then Anthony would take over. Now Anthony's hurt, not going to play in the bowl game. Florida is literally sitting there with one quarterback who's thrown a pass all year. So who's thrown the second most passes? Trent Whittemore. So it gets into a situation where do not bet on bowl games, because if the quarterback sprains his ankle, there may not be anybody else to go into the game.
I mean, I was talking to somebody today close to the Auburn program, and I don't know how many guys they're going to have available for that game between or among opt-outs and guys turning pro and guys transferring the portal. And they're not the only one. Both of Purdue's best players announcing today that they're not going to play in the bowl game, but that's going to become the norm. And really, if you're going to bet on a bowl game, you better go look at guys. You better go look at the second team on the depth chart. You better go look and see who's recruited whom the last year or two, because those are going to be the players playing in bowl games and not frontline players.
Well, what do you think is going to happen with the? We got 40 bowl games, I think it is. They had to add a bowl game to get everybody in, but and again, I know that it's programming for ESPN. That's what bowl games are now. It used to be a totally different story. It was a big deal. Players don't want to go to bowl games to get a Walkman. They can go buy a Walkman with their NIL money. So, do you think bowl games are going to start to, decrease in number?
Yeah, I think eventually. And I don't know how it's all going to shake out, Pat, but it's you're going to be begging kids to play. And what about coaches, assistant coaches coming and going, and head coach?
Yeah.
And Brian Kelly, think about this. If Cincinnati loses to Houston in the AAC championship game, Notre Dame's probably in the playoff. Brian Kelly, quote unquote, opted out to go coach at LSU. So Marcus Freeman, who was promoted, good for Marcus, good for that program, promoted to head coach at Notre Dame, would have been coaching Notre Dame in the bowl game, while the guy who led them all year, Brian Kelly, would have been down at LSU recruiting. I don't know. I just know that it's a different landscape than any of us who've covered this sport for a long time, who've coached, who've been in administration are used to. And I don't think you're going to put the toothpaste back in the tube, Pat. And I don't know what the answers are as far as, bowl games, how many. Will it help when they go to more teams? I think that will help some if they do indeed go to 12 teams in the playoff, because then you're going to have, as you get into latter November, and even teams that don't win their championship games, like this year, for instance, at Ohio State would certainly be a Baylor, Oregon. Some of those teams
they'd be in the playoffs, so they
would be in the playoffs. So some of these players on these, marquee players on these teams, I think would hang around and play. So I think that will help the situation. But you're still not going to get completely away from kids who think, you know what, I'm a first round, second round, third round pick. I'm not going to chance getting hurt in a bowl game that doesn't really mean a whole lot. And I understand the other side of that. Wait a minute, you're going to be backing out on your teammates. It's difficult for those old school guys who grew up. You never walked away. But I want to reiterate what I said earlier in our conversation. Coaches are walking away too. And the only thing I would ask before fans, before coaches, before anybody, any of us in the media start criticizing players, is that players not be held to a different standard than coaches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's like Seinfeld said, we're all just rooting for laundry, right? I mean, if you're a Gator fan, whoever they put on the field, you're going to root for. If you're an FSU fan, if you're a Tennessee fan, whatever they put out there, you're going to root for. You hope they do well. But I'm wondering what you mentioned, the 12-team playoff. What if you had to put a percentage in January when they're supposed to meet again? Which, again, this is part of college football's problem. They can't make their minds up about how they want to settle a champion. But when they meet again in January, what do you think the percentage is? It'll be a 12-team playoff.
I'll say 75, 80%. But here's the caveat, Pat. I think we're still, because they haven't been able to agree on anything, I think it might be 25 or 26 before we get to that point.
Right.
I think we're going to play another 3-4 seasons, at least 3 seasons, before we have an expansion of any sort. I tell you what I don't like. I don't mind 12 teams at all, okay? I don't like the fact that some conferences are pushing to have all the Power 5 champions automatically in the playoff. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. And I understand why, if you're in the Pac-12, if you're in the Big 12, that you
even
think
the
that should
ACC
happen.
now, yeah.
ACC. I mean, you go back a few years ago, there was a 6-6 Pitt team that played Clemson in the ACC championship game. Now, the chances of Clemson losing that game were remote, but who wants to see a 500 team in the playoff because they have one really good game, or probably the other end of the spectrum is the team they're playing, who's a really good team, has a poor game, and that one game puts that team that's lost 6 games in the playoff. I don't like that at all. Now, do they want to say that the highest ranked, let's say the top 5 or top 6 highest ranked conference champions get in? All right, I could deal with that. But just to say, all right, if you're the Pac-12 champion, the ACC champion, any of the leagues, just because you win your conference championship, you're going to get a spot. That sounds an awful lot, stumbling here, like a participation trophy type deal. Okay, you're in this conference, and we all know that all conferences and all conference champions aren't created equal. And so that's the part I think that I hope they take a long look at that before they do anything.
Absolutely, and it would be more like the NFL, where you could go 8-8 and still win your division, so you get to play. Let me just run by you quickly the coaching hires and just get your take on them. Let's start off with, of course, Billy Napier here at Florida. Obviously, he's made an impact early. He seems to be recruiting like a real recruiter. He's bringing in a army of people. He's bringing in a good staff. What's your take on Billy Napier?
Yeah, from the day that we all heard that Dan was probably out there, he's really the only name I ever heard was Billy.
Yeah.
I don't think there was ever really any – I shouldn't say that they didn't consider anybody else, but he was clearly the guy there at Florida. And I give Billy credit. I've told him this over the last couple of years. It's hard to be patient anymore. When you're coaching at a group of 5 school and you have SEC schools come after you the way they did Billy over the last couple of years, most guys pull the trigger, Pat. He never did that. Mississippi State, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Ole Miss, all those schools in some form or fashion were very interested in him being their head coach, but he waited. And he wanted one of the marquee blue blood programs, and he got it in Florida. And he's an offensive guy. He is a tenacious recruiter. I think he will put together a recruiting operation that's more closely resembles what the recruiting juggernauts in the SEC do. I still think when you have this kind of transition, you're already seeing it, players transferring out. Some players you don't necessarily want to lose. Some you do want to lose, right? It's always the case. So I never get caught up in numbers of players leaving. To me, it's who leaves. And coaches know who they want to keep and who they want to leave. So it's a tough transition when you do that. And some of the players that have left, surely they would like to have them stay there, some of their commits. But no, Billy, look at some of the guys he's brought in, like Corey Raymond. You talk about an SEC war dog, a guy that has recruited and coached in that league and done it at a high level. I think he understands what it takes. The fact that, here's what I like about Billy is Billy's coached under big-time names, Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban. He's coached in the SEC. He's recruited. But, he's had some what I want to say failure, but he's been forced out. He's been fired.
Got fired at Clemson, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that makes you stronger. I guarantee if you sit down and talk to Billy Napier or any coach who's going through that, they would tell you that makes you a better coach, a more resilient coach, and he's had to face those situations during his career, and I think that will make him more equipped to coach at Florida, which we all know that's a pressure cooker. I mean, Dan Mullen was in the championship game, the SEC championship game last year, and played Alabama better than anybody. And a year later, he's gone. So we know what the standard is there at Gainesville, and it's not to play for championships, it's to win them.
I'm curious about the transformation, the makeover of Brian Kelly that you've seen, dancing with recruits and developing a Southern accent. But how do you think that's going to play out?
Family, is that what he said?
Family.
Do you think they brought in a speech coach down there on the bayou to sort of help him with that?
They probably brought Jesse Palmer's speech coach that he used to have here in Florida down there.
Well, Scott Woodward, LSU's AD, is renowned for going out and making big splash hires. He's done that really in a number of different sports, and there was never any doubt in my mind that he was going to shoot big. When Jimbo told him no for the 18th time, he moved on. Lincoln Riley has said no, he wasn't really in it. Well, good and well there was some inquiries there, and then Brian Kelly, when you look at sort of who else was out there, fits that mold, Pat. Now, does he fit at LSU? I don't know, but he's had success. He's won big. He's recruited nationally, which you have to at Notre Dame. And, he's a proven guy, a guy that has played for national championships, has been swimming in those waters at a place in Notre Dame, which is you're also coaching in a fishbowl. So I think from that perspective, he'll be okay. But it's, at LSU, it's a little bit different, and it's
it is different.
You got to sort of be, you want to fit in with what the culture and the climate is there at LSU. But my good friend David Cutcliffe, who just recently stepped down at Duke, and probably more accurately, they stepped him down, is as good a guy as there is in coaching. And he one time said, we were talking about the SEC and how the SEC is not for everybody as a coach. And he talked about recruiting, and he said, some people don't want to climb into that recruiting octagon that is the SEC. And those that do climb in for the first time are in for a rude awakening. We'll find out with Brian Kelly, just how excited he is to climb into that recruiting octagon if it works out for him. I do think he's a solid football coach. He will surround himself with good people. But you know what? There again, you can have some success at LSU and one bad year and you're out. I'll say this, Pat, and you covered the SEC longer than I am, which is a nice way for me saying to my good friend that you're older than me.
I am older than everybody.
But three guys in the last 18 years have won national titles at LSU. Two of those guys are no longer coaching. They're out of football. So what's that tell you? You can win there at a high level, but surviving there long term hasn't been the easiest thing to do.
That is crazy. I hadn't even thought about that. You're absolutely right. Last one for you. Dan Lang to Oregon Do you think I'm not concerned about it's a kind of a weird hire for Oregon. I know that Wilcox turned him down, or what, according to. But what about? Does you think it affects Georgia going forward? I mean, it's Will Muschamp's defense. I mean, I'm sorry, it's Kirby Smart's defense, and Will Muschamp knows exactly what he wants to run. I don't think it has any effect on them in the playoffs.
No, and he's going to stay around too. Now it's hard to sort of burn both ends of that candle. And Kirby's done it himself. You know, he did it at Alabama the year that that Georgia hired him. So maybe that gives him a little insight, Pat, into helping Lanning. But no, I don't think it affects them in the playoff. And this is a little bit of an aside of what you asked. Go back and look at Saban's 2015 staff at Alabama. The guys on that staff, incredible. Lanning was a GA on that staff. Cristobal was his offensive line coach. Lane was his OC. Kirby was his DC. I mean, we can keep going on and on. Mel Tucker,
I think Billy Napier was a wide receiver coach.
Yeah. And Billy right there. So I mean, you talk about a cradle of coaches and a tree. I don't know that we'll ever see one. You know, there's that famous picture, I guess Hayden Fry's staff back in the 80s.
Yeah.
With Bob Stoops and
Bob Stoops, yeah.
I think Bill Snyder. I think this 15 staff under Saban is going to end up being maybe the greatest ever. But no, I don't think that affects him. To me, the bigger question with Georgia is how do they respond from that? I can't say it, I guess, on a podcast, but that you blankety blank beating that they got handed to them there in Atlanta. I mean, they didn't get beat, Pat. They got beaten up pretty good. And how they respond to that, and they're going. Everybody talks about, well, they're going to get another shot at Alabama. You better be ready to play a Michigan team that's playing about as well as anybody right now.
I think they're the best. I think I could have made an argument for Michigan being number one, and
sure.
I was kind of. I mean, we know why they weren't. They weren't going to match up Alabama and Georgia again in the first round. So
no way.
I could have made that argument for it. Hey, Chris, always great talking to you, man. It'd be nice to see you in a press box again before we're done with our careers.
Same here, man. I miss seeing you. I miss seeing all the old what we call each other hacks, the old sports hacks and press boxes around the. Pat, I go in press boxes now, man. And I remember back in the day when I went in, I was sort of the young guy. You know, you'd run into all the veterans, the wily veterans in our business, and now I look around and everybody in there is under 40 or 30 for that matter. And but it's always good to catch up with you and be sure in your mind, the head ball coach, I said that those putts inside 2 feet.
Yeah,
I can understand he's going to rake those in, but those 3.5 footers, that's just not the way the game's supposed to be played.
I still don't think he thinks anything's a good putt until it goes in the hole. But that's but that's the way he is.
And having played with him before, he's got a much better idea of what your score is than he does his score.
That's right. I was playing with him in Washington, and playing with it was a bunch of assistant coaches, and so I'm playing with Kim Helton is one of his assistant coaches, and so he said, all right, whatever everybody have. I had a 4, coach, yeah, and then Kim Helton goes, yeah, I had a 4 too. He goes, nah, better count them again, Kim. I think he had 5. He might have had 6, but go ahead and count them again.
Yes, Stoops has a great story of that too. They were playing at Whistling Straits, I think, the Monday after the PGA champion. I'm sure you've heard Bob tell that story. And Bob hits one down the cliff in the weeds. He hacks it out of there, and he gets up on the green and walks off, shaking his head, and said, God, I had a 10 on that hole. And Spurrier stops on the diamond, looks around and says, Bobby, I think it was an 11.
Didn't he call out Dan Patrick, too, one time for moving his ball there? Yeah.
Said he was hitting it out there in the weeds and said, I get up there. And because you have these places, you have caddies. You're not riding around in a cart. And he said, his caddies kicked it out there in the fairway. He's 20 yards out the fairway.
There's only one guy like that, and we're lucky to be friends with him.
I miss him, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, I get to see him in here all the time. So he was in here. I will, definitely. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, Pat. It's
Appreciate
great to be with you, man.
Chris Lowe from ESPN, one of the greats in the business, and just tremendous writer, tremendous knowledge, and hope you guys enjoyed that. We got a lot of things we got to get to on the other side. here in the Shack Al Mercadante Studios on Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI. We'll get to all that. The hand law, the Alex Wesley, the Hesser and Kipke, the Leonardo's at Millhopper, and all those things. And Adam's Ribco to go. Oh, I got a good Gators of the weekend. Oh, I do. I work hard at this. We'll be right back. You're listening to or watching Another Dooley Noted Podcast.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shack Al Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shack Al Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Another Duly Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Ribco to go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Ribco to go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Okay, and welcome back to another Duly Noted Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed Chris Lowe. Again, Greg McGarity on Friday, Greg McElroy on Monday. Just got confirmation on that. And maybe we should get another Greg for, I don't know, Greg. Who's a famous Greg? Greg Kinnear. We'll have him on. Is that the most famous Greg there is? Greg's not a real popular name. Greg. I can't think of another one. Greg Norman. That's a good one, yeah. All right. So we've got a lot of things to get to. Let's get to them. Let's start out with Hand Law presents Three Things. Three Things is presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville, and of course, they are also sponsors of Robbie Andrews' segments. I was thinking about it. We do need a tape ahead on Christmas, so maybe we'll have Robbie on for that. Maybe we'll make him wear a Santa hat for that one. That'd be good. Yeah. Let's make Robbie dress up like, yes, ho, ho, ho. And then he'll just start quoting lines from Blazing Saddles. All right, number one on Hand Law presents three things. And again, we appreciate them not only for presenting three things, but for presenting Robbie Andrew when he's on the show. Number one, the Urban Mess, which is unbelievable. Like, look, people who kept saying Urban Meyer will not succeed in the NFL, I kept going, you don't know Urban. Urban is going to succeed whatever he does. He's too good at it. He came back for the chance. He went to a great situation financially for what they were giving him, and he was going to get Trevor Lawrence. But this is the NFL. It's hard. These are professionals, and people have gotten upset. And apparently, now again, he's denying every report. He denied everything that ever went wrong here. It never happened. Percy Harvin never beat up Billy Gonzalez or tried to choke him. Percy Harvin never went after Chris Rainey after practice. Guys didn't show up for practice. That never happened. All that. Well, he's saying all this stuff didn't happen, that he apparently told all the assistant coaches, you guys are a bunch of losers. Where have you ever won? I've won. You haven't won. And Charlie Strong is in the room, right? I mean, he's won at the same level you've won at, but Urban's lost it a little bit. And, of course, they get shut out Saturday or Sunday. Urban comes out and says basically, hey, if there are guys telling stories from our locker room, you're out. We're going to fire you. So today I tried to call Charlie Strong. Guess who didn't answer the phone? Because he doesn't, and he's not snitching to me anything. We just talk as friends because we're really good friends. And there's never been any snitching. There's never been any talking about what's going on there. He's talked to me about wanting to come back here and everything, but that was a long time ago. So Charlie's not calling me back. All right, number two, Manny Diaz to Penn State. A lot of people wanted Manny Diaz to come here. I never really got that. Their defense was a part of the problem they had. Manny Diaz is a good recruiter. But anyway, he's going to Penn State. And that's going to be a weird dynamic with him at Penn State. And I guess he's going to try to bring Florida kids up there. This is what Billy Napier is dealing with. Not only is he dealing with Kirby Smart here, now Brian Kelly here, Nick Saban here, and now you got Manny Diaz who knows the state up here. All these people trying to recruit Florida. I mentioned this last week on Friday. There are 46 players on the rosters of the college football playoff teams that are from the state of Florida. I mean, this is what happens. This has got where the best football is, and everybody gets these kids, and they've been able to come in here kind of like they have been able to do in Texas and just take them. And, you know, if you can win the recruiting battle, great. If you don't, it's probably some other team, but not anybody in the state of Florida. So it'll be interesting to see if Diaz does make an impact for Penn State. I will say this. If you live in Miami or Coral Gables or Pompano Beach or anything, and you go visit State College, Pennsylvania, you're going to go, when can I get home? When does my plane leave? It's nice. It's not like it's wrong or bad. I've been there twice. Miami's better. Okay. All right. And finally, number three, I don't know how many of you watched basketball this weekend. I watched a lot of it. We talked about Gator basketball in the opening, but I did watch a lot of games, including that Houston-Alabama game. If you saw that game, it was a great game, very late finish, and there was a goaltending call that wasn't called at the end. Houston was upset. The coaches and the players chased the referees into the locker room, and they trashed everything in the arena. I guess it was at Alabama. I think it was at Alabama. So anyway, they trashed all the trash cans and everything going out. And this one player, and I want to make sure I mention him, Jamal Shedd, I should say. Good player. He stopped. And he put all the trash back in the trash cans. That kid, he's my favorite player from now on in college basketball. It was weird. And there was a lot of weird and a lot of crazy games this weekend, and I did enjoy it. So for today, that is a Hand Law 3 things here in the Shaq Allen Mercandone Studios on Another Duly Noted Podcast. Let's get to the Adams Ripco to go. Gators of the weekend. How about the women's basketball team? Beat FSU, and not only beat them, beat the crap out of them. They were never in the game. They destroyed them, and FSU's kind of owned them for a while. And congratulations to them and to Coach Finley and everybody there. To win, they're 9-3. They're not getting in the tournament. Okay, I looked at their net ranking is really low, even way lower than the men's. It's like in the 90s because they've not had a lot of quality wins, but that's a quality win, and good for them. And Florida beat FSU in football, basketball, and women's basketball this year. I like that year. And they've already destroyed them in exhibition softball. So, but the women deserve to be our Gators of the weekend to beat FSU like that. And that was one of those where I'm sitting there on Sunday and I'm like, hey, I wonder what the women did. And I turn on, I go, they're up by 20. What the H? So good for them. Congratulations to all the women on that basketball team. And that they are Adams Ribco to go, Gators of the weekend, here on the Dooley Noted Podcast, another Dooley Noted Podcast from Shacko, Mercandani. Let's get to the Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. Alex Wesley Construction, love where you live. And today we're going to rank the bowl games that are not the playoff games. Number one, the Ohio State-Utah game in the Rose Bowl. I love that game. That's going to be a fun game to watch. That's one of those games. It's got the times zone to itself, 5 o'clock, I think it is, on New Year's Day. So that's number one. Number two, the Fiesta with Notre Dame, Oklahoma State ought to be a lot of fun because I'm curious to watch Marcus Freeman in that game as much as anything. And, I didn't even want to get into Mike Gundy and the whole his agent sent Florida a letter saying it's time for him to be the coach there. Yeah, that's what you told him before. That's what you've told a lot of schools before. He's just trying to get more money, and I don't think he'd be a good fit here anyway. The Liberty Bowl with Mississippi State and Texas Tech could be number one, really, because Mike Leach, Texas Tech, he still says they owe him $9 million. Maybe he takes it out on their hide or something. That's an interesting one. To me, the Sugar Bowl with Ole Miss and Baylor, the only reason it's not higher is that I'm just not sure how much – I don't even know if Matt Corral's playing that game. In fact, maybe I should know whether he is or not. But I think it's going to be a good game. I don't know how great it's going to be. The Duke Mayo Bowl, which I know you all love, me being a Mayo's fan, I love, but it's North Carolina, South Carolina. North Carolina can't stop anybody, and South Carolina got into a bowl game. I'm curious. I want to watch that game. That's going to be fun. The Outback Bowl, Penn State and Auburn. For obvious reasons, that's a good game. Number 7 is a Wake A&M game in the Gator Bowl. They got a great game. We'll have Greg McGarry, the CEO of the Gator Bowl, on later this week on Friday. Clemson and Iowa State in the Cheez-Its Bowl. Can you believe Clemson's in the Cheez-Its Bowl? What the H? I mean, that's not where they usually think they're going to go. I'm looking forward to number 9, Houston-Auburn in the Birmingham Bowl. Houston's got a really good team. Auburn with a new quarterback, obviously, because Bo Nix was out anyway, but it's going to be interesting to watch that game. Iowa, Kentucky in the Citrus Bowl would be higher, but neither team has much of an offense, but I still will be into that. And by the way, I am basing this on what games I want to watch, not what maybe you want to watch. It's what I want to watch. Texas Bowl, LSU and Kansas State. I couldn't name one player in Kansas State, but I will still watch LSU and negative root against them. And then finally, number 12, Oregon and Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, which it's hard to believe that those two teams are in the Alamo Bowl when you think of where they thought they might be in a different place. All right, that is our Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. Alex Wesley Construction, love where you live, and we'll have another good one for you next week. Leonardo's quick pick is a simple one. You guys got shut out on Army-Navy. You got to come back. Kansas City is giving 3.5 against the LA Chargers Thursday night. Ought to be a good game. I can't wait to watch that game. That is the Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. Thanks so much to Kyle. We're running way late on time. I can't get to a lot of things, including all the people that transferred out, but we got to get to Hesser and Kipke's Monday Spreads. They are brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, a law firm based in Hale Plantation, specializing in employment, workers' comp, and family law. Visit their website at www.hklaw.com. nfl.com or call Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920. We'll have the Friday games of the week as well, the weekend games of the week. But here's some of the spreads from the games this weekend, just so you have them. Coastal Carolina, 10-point favorite over Northern Illinois. And you're going, I don't care. Well, I mean, I'm giving you the spreads. These are the games that are this weekend. Appalachian State is a 3-point favorite over Western Kentucky. I'm telling you, take Western Kentucky. That's a good offense. BYU's a 7-point favorite over UAB in their bowl game. Liberty, a 9-point favorite over Eastern Michigan. I don't know about that. These are all impossible to pick. Oregon State's a 7-point favorite over Utah State. Lafayette, 4.5 over Marshall. Billy Napier's old team. I'm curious to see how they play, but, I mean, again, they've got a little bit of a skeleton staff situation there. Florida UCF has not gone down despite Anthony Richardson's news that he's not playing the game. It's still 6.5. For Ken Hesser, I got to mention that Penn State is a 2.5-point favorite over Arkansas, although they opened as a 4-point favorite. So Arkansas money coming in. And a couple of NFL games. The Jaguars are 3-point favorites over the Texans with 2 wins to their credit. So that'll be interesting. All right, so that should do it. And we went long, and that's okay. Bo Nix in the transfer portal. Nick Evers to Oklahoma. Keaton Slovis in the transfer portal. Tank Bigsby apparently is going to get in the transfer portal. And the coolest thing I saw all weekend was Dickie V recovering from cancer, doing the Baylor-Villanova game, and the fans went nuts for him when he came out, and it reduced him to sobbing tears. Coolest thing I saw all week. I love you, Dickie V. Get well. Be talking to you soon. We want to get you on the podcast, but not until you're 100%. And he's promised to be on it when he gets there. So we'll be back with another show on Friday. Greg McGarity will join us in. And thanks so much to Evan for all the hard work he does and putting up with me going long like I did today. Until next time, I'm Pat Dooley. I am deep, I am way back, and I am out of here.